Daf Samach Gimel Amud Beis will begin Daf Samach Gimel Amud Aleph, 6 lines from the bottom. We learned previously that the two Shnei Sirim, the two Sirim of Yom Kippurim, that the person shechted is bachutz. So there's an Isra of shchutei chutz. So if it was before the Hagrola, then he's chayav al shneim. He's chayav for both, because either one of them could have been used for the Musa. So therefore, it is a korban that could have been brought al Pesach al Moed. And if he shechted b'chutz, he's chayav for shchutei chutz. But after the Hagrola, he's chayav on shel shem u'poter ashal azazel. He's chayav on the one shel shem, because that was something that could have been brought to the Pesach al Moed, but the Azazel was not going to be brought as a korban anyway, Pesach al Moed, so he's not chayav for the Azazel. Amar Mar, Zakti Gemara, Amar Mar, Mishehigril Aleim, after the Hagrola, chayav shel shem, u'poter ashel Azazel. Tonu Rabbonon, ish mi beis Yisrael, asher yishchat shor, oy kesef, oy eiz b'mach, oy asher yishchat mechutz l'machna. It says, the Torah says, any person who shechs an animal in the camp or outside the camp, vel Pesach al Moed lo yeviu lahakiv korban l'Hashem, and he didn't bring it to the Pesach al Moed to be makav it as a korban. So there he's chayav for shchutei chutz. So that's where the Torah says that he's chayav, and if he did b'meizid, he's chayav koretz for shchutei chutz. So the Torah says, "Well, Pesach al Moed lo yeviu lahakiv korban l'Hashem." So laf korban. So korban, from the word of korban, shemeani. I might have thought to say afilu kachib berekabayis. I might have thought to say that even if there's an animal that a person was makdish for berekabayis, not for a korban, but for berekabayis, that they should be used for the upkeep of the Beis HaMikdash, you might think that also is chayav for shchutei chutz, shenikra korban, like we find in the pasuk that Berek Habayis is also called a korban. Kinyan shenema v'nakriv as korban Hashem. After the Midian, the Melchome Midian, the officers came back and they said that we brought this korban Hashem. And what's it referring to? It's referring to the gold, the kalim of gold, and the bracelet and anklet, and these are kalim. So things are Berek Habayis. They were makdashit for the Berek Habayis, and they called it a korban. V'nakrev korban is korban Hashem. So you might think that therefore there's also the Isser Shchutei Chutz for a animal that the Kedusha is for Berek Habayis, Talmud Loima. So the Torah says, Vel Pesach al Moed lo yeviu. He didn't bring it to Pesach al Moed. What is he chayav for Shchutei Chutz? Something that he should have brought to Pesach al Moed, and he didn't, and he shechted it b'chutz. So therefore we learn out, Kol haroy lePesach al Moed chayav la b'chutz. Whatever it was fit to be brought to the Pesach al Moed, you're chayav for Shchutei Chutz. Kol she'eno roy lePesach al Moed, but what is not roy lePesach al Moed, ein chayav alav b'chutz. You're not chayav for Shchutei Chutz. So Berek Habayis is not roy lePesach al Moed. So there's no chayav for Shchutei Chutz. Oitzi elu al exclude these she'en roy lePesach al Moed, because they're not fit to be brought while Moed. V'lo oitzi paras chatas v'sura mishtaleach, but perhaps I will not exclude the paras chatas and the sura mishtaleach. Shu roy lavel Pesach al Moed, because it is royal Pesach al Moed. Now Rashi says we're not geiros over here the paras chatas, because the para duma is not royal Pesach al Moed. It's not, it doesn't come to Pesach al Moed. It's shechted in Hamishcha. But the Yersa is only Ser Mishtaleach. Now, Ser Mishtaleach is Roy LePesach al Moed, even though you're not makavit as a korban, but the Hagrola is done in the Azora, and the Vidoy is done, so therefore there is part of the Avodah that is done on the Pesach al Moed. He does the Smicha, he does the Vidoy, there's the Hagrola, so you might think, since in part it's Roy Lovel Pesach al Moed, therefore you might think there's also the Isser of Shchutei Chutz by the Isser Lazozel, Talmud Lemer LaHashem. The Pasuk says LaHashem. The Pasuk says that it's LaHashem. It says Al Pesach al Moed lo yeviu lahakiv korban LaHashem. Not only a korban, not a stam korban, a korban LaHashem. Mish miyuchadim LaHashem, which are exclusively for Hashem. Yotze elu she'en miyuchadim l'Shem. And these are not miyuchadim l'Shem. Meaning, even though there's some parts that are done of the Aveda that are done in Pesach Mayid, but it's not Miyucharim L'Shem. It's not Miyucharim L'Shem because the main purpose is not for a korban. It's not to be makrid as a korban. Tais Rishonim points out, however, that is only when we say this is after Hagrola. But before the Hagrola, since either one of the Seirim could be used for the Musaf, then they are Miyucharim L'Shem, because either one of them could be used for the Musaf, and therefore he would be Chayiv for Shchutei Chutz before the Hagrola. Frank the Gemor V'Lashem Lo Haitzi, who you're saying over here that Hashem means it's an exclusion. It means Miyucharim L'Shem, and we exclude the Sor L'Azoza. Very minu as Hofstedter. It says Yirotz L'Korban Ishal Hashem. It says, the pasuk says that Shor Oikesa Ve'ez Ki Voled. It says when the animal is born, so the ox or the kesa or the ace, that's Ki Voled. She was Yom Tachsiman. It's 7 days under his mother. And Yom Hashmini V'Hala Yirotza, and from the 8th day and on, it's Yirotza L'Korban Ishal Hashem. Then it's Rotza for Korban Hashem. It's only from the 8th day and on. Then it's acceptable as a korban. But prior to that, during the first 7 days, the ox or the lamb and the goat are not roy for a korban. So it says, so we darshan Hashem. That refers to what's burned on the Mizbeach. You can't bring a korban and have anything burnt on the Mizbeach less than 8 days old. So you can't offer it as a korban. It cannot be brought to the Mizbeach if the animal is less than 8 days old. How do I know that you can't even be makdish it? Even if you're not makdish, just to be makdish it, if it's mechusar zman, if it's less than 8 days old, how do you know that that's awesome? Talmud Loimar korban. So Talmud Loimar, it says korban. It says korban, meaning you can't be makdish it as a korban. It's when you're makdish it, it's called a korban. So you can't even make it a korban. You can't be makdish. You can't even be makdish it less than 8 days old. La Hashem, it says La Hashem. It says Lo Yomi Masechet Yoma LeKorban Ishe La Hashem La Hashem LeRabbi Sor Mishtaleach. It means even the Sor Mishtaleach, which is not brought on the Mizbeach at all, even that you can't be makdish it less than 8 days old. So you see over here that the word La Hashem is being marba. We're including the Sara Mishtaleach in the Isser being makdish less than 8 days old. Rava answers also minyan of the Kra, whether it's an inclusion or an exclusion, it depends on the context. Over there, it's based on the context, and here it's based on the context. Hasam el Pesach l'Rabis. There it says, when we're talking about Shchutei Chutz, it says El Pesach Ol Moed, that would be inclusion. That would include the Sar Mishalech. El Pesach Ol Moed, the Sar Mishalech does come in Pesach Ol Moed. There are certain things that are done in Pesach Ol Moed. So I would have included in the Isser of Shchutei Chutz even the Sar Lazazel, because El Pesach Ol Moed Lo Yavil. He didn't bring it to the Pesach Ol Moed, and he should have, not to be makrid on the Mizbeach, but to do the certain avoidance that he done, the Hagrola, the Smicha, and the Vidui. So therefore, normally it would have been included from El Pesach Ol Moed. Then when it says Lashem, so what does it say Lashem? L'Haitzi. It would have been included. Then Lashem, therefore, excludes it. It says no, only what's exclusively Lashem. But Hacha, the Isha L'Haitzi. Over here, I would have said Isha, what's burnt on the Mizbeach, that would have excluded the Surah Lazos. La Hashem is L'Rabbis. Now the Hashem is Madam. Frank the moral time of the Rabbi Rachmana, why do we say that you can't be makdish at less than 8 days old? Because of the riboy, La Hashem is Marb. Halai Rabbi, but if not for the riboy, Havamina, Sarah Mishtalech, I might have thought that you can be makdish less than 8 days old, even though it's premature. It's mechusar zman. Well, you have to bring the 2 serum, the 2 goats. You have to bring it for a girl. And each one have to be roy for each purpose. So the one that ultimately is a Sora Lazozel, but it has to be that potentially it could have been roy Lashem. Now, if it's premature, if it's less than 8 days old, it wouldn't have been roy for the Mizbeach. So how can you bring it? How can you be makdish it? Then how can you be makdish in any event? It has to be roy for to make the girl. It has to be therefore roy for the Mizbeach, and it's not roy for the Mizbeach. So the male, I would know in any event, even without the riboy akro, I would know that you can't be makdishes for the soyer lazozel. So what do I need the riboy for? More answers. Amar of Yosef, Amani. Who's this Tana going like? It's Chanan Mitzri. The Tana is Chanan Mitzri. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa, taught in the Brisa, Chanan Mitzri Yomer. It says, Afilu dam v'kais. Even if you have the dam of the Sora Lashem, they did the goyrel, they made the hagrola. One goat was designated as the Sora Lashem. They shafted it, and Makabal the dam, it's in the kli, it's in the cup. And then, if the Sora Lazozel dies, the one that was designated as Sora Lazozel, it died. So now you're missing the Sora Lazozel. Maybe Chaver Mezavigli. He brings another goat. He brings a brother for the market. He designates it as a Sora Lazozel, and he pairs it up with this one. You don't need to do the avoida. You don't need to start from the beginning with the Sora Lashem. The money that was in the kais, that even though temporarily it's now been nidcha, when the Sora Lazozel dies, even though temporarily you can't be makrivid because you need the pair, you need the Sora Lazozel. But nevertheless, Chanan Mitzri holds, you bring another one, and you don't have to start from the beginning. This dam that's in the kais is still fit. Once you bring the new Sora Lazozel, it's roy, even though at one point in time it was nitcha, it was not roy, it's still, when you bring another one, it is roy. So therefore, the Gemara is assuming, well, you're bringing a pair, you're bringing another soyer to replace the Sora Lazozel that died. The Gemara is assuming you don't have to make a new girl. If you don't have to make a new girl, this soyer Lazozel does not have to be royal Hashem. And therefore, perhaps you say that even if it's less than 8 days old, you can be makdish and it's fit. Kamash Malan, Lashem, that it's telling you that you cannot be makdish for the Sora Lazozel, even under these circumstances, you can't be makdish for the Sora Lazozel. So it's a Chanan Mitzri who says, Afilo dam b'kais, maybe chaver mezavik lo, you bring another one and you pair it up with this blood, and therefore, more is assuming you don't need another girl. Frank the Gemara, no, Emer the Shammah Chanan Mitzri the Leslie the Chuyin. We only see from here that Chanan Mitzri says that we don't hold of the Chuyin, that even though temporarily the blood in the kais was not roy for the Mizbech because you didn't have the pair, you didn't have the Sora Lazozel, but he holds we don't hold the Chuyin, meaning that's temporary. When you have now a pair for a partner for it, you bring another one, a replacement for the Sora that died, you can now resume and use this blood. But who says the Leslie Hagrola Mishamadle? But where did you hear that he doesn't hold the Hagrola? Dilam Maisa Magel. Maybe he says you bring a pair, but you have to bring 2 Seirim. You have to make a new girl because you can't designate the Soyer Azazel without a girl. So you have to bring 2 Seirim, make a girl. One is designated for the Soyer Azazel to replace the one that died, and the other one that was designated for Soyer Hashem, you're not makrivid because you have the dam b'kais, you have the original dam, and that one is year Hashem time. He waits and grazes till it gets a mum, and you point it and use the money for the nidros tzibur. So you don't see that he doesn't hold the hagrola. Now, if you have to make a hagrola, so obviously you can't be makdish the Sora less than 8 days old because it has to be roy. If you're making a gorel, each one has to be roy Hashem. So I don't need the ribui to tell me that I can't be makdish at less than 8 days old. Elo Amar of Yosef, he says, Halmani, who's the Tana, it's Rabbi Shimoni. Is according to Rabbi Shimon, the Sanya is taught in the Brisa, Masechet Mehem, if one of them died, after the girl, one of them died, maybe Chaver Shaloi Ba'agrola. You don't have to start from the beginning, and you don't say that the one that's alive has been disqualified. You just bring a pair, You bring you bring one to pair it off with the one that's alive. You do not have to make a new girl. You just bring a replacement for the one that's died. So you see that he holds if one died, you don't need a new girl. You just bring one to replace the one that died. You don't need a new girl. So therefore, if the one that was Azazel died, you're bringing a replacement. You don't need a new girl. So it doesn't have to be Royal Hashem. So you might think that therefore you can be Makdish at less than 8 days old. That's why I have the Rebbe Krot to teach me that I can't. Ravina says, Kigon Shuhumam Vechil Alacher. He says the case is talking where there was a girl. Then the one that was the Sor Lazazel was Degnei Sor Lazazel got a mum. Now it had a mum, it's not disqualified to be the Sor Lazazel. You were pointed on another Sor. Now since the replacement Sor, it got its kedusha from the one that was a girl was made already, it's to replace the one that had a mum, that had a girl. But you're pointed the one that had a mum on the new one that doesn't have a mum, so it derives its kedusha from one that already had a girl. You don't have to make a new girl. Since you don't have to make a new girl, you might think that you can be makdish at less than 8 days old because it doesn't have to be Royal Hashem, K'mashmalan, that you cannot. Uminat Tamer, the possibly mum. Now we have to mention that the Sor Lazazel had a mum and it's disqualified. From where do we know that a mum disqualifies a Sor Lazazel? You're not makriv on the Mizbeach, so where do we see that a mum disqualifies it? So it says in regarding to an animal that has a mum, you cannot use it to be burned on the Mizbeach. The pasuk says, "Averes oyshaver oyachoretz oyabelas oyagarv oyaleves loisakrivu elo laShem ve'isha loisitnu mehem al Mizbeach laShem." So it says, "V'isha loy sitna mehem l'mizbeach l'Hashem." You can't use it to burn it on the mizbeach. So isha elo chalovim means that you can't burn that part that goes on the mizbeach. The chalovim that are burnt on the mizbeach you cannot from an animal that has a mum, you cannot place it on the mizbeach and burn it on the mizbeach. Ainli ela kulan. Then I only know that it's all of it. The entire amount can't be burnt on the mizbeach. How do I even know even a small part, even as small as a kazayas, mehem, even part of them, even part of it, any part of it cannot be burnt on the mizbeach. Mizbeach. So it says mizbeach. It says leisitnum hem al hamizbeach lashem mizbeach zu zrikas damim. You can't do the zrikas damim from a behema that has a mum. Lashem. It says, Al Mizbeach Lashem, even if it's not going on the Mizbeach, even if it's just Lashem, something that has part of it is there's an avodah that's done Lashem, even though it's not going on the Mizbeach. L'Rava Sar Mishtaleach, that includes a Sar Mishtaleach, which doesn't go on the Mizbeach. It's not burned on the Mizbeach. There also a mum passes it. Now we have two miyutim where mamait that the Sar Mishtaleach can't have a mum, Mishtah also that it can't be mechusar zman, it can't be less than 8 days old. If it only wrote mechusar zman, I would have thought mishum dulemati zimna, because its time hasn't arrived yet, so it hasn't yet been qualified. So therefore, you cannot be makdish. But its time has arrived. It was roy for the Mizbeach. It was roy for the Mizbeach. I might have thought, well, once there was a stage in time when it was roy, a mum will not disqualify it. I might have thought that its time has already arrived. It had a point in time when it was roy for the Mizbeach. That remains. So I might have thought that a mum doesn't pass it. That's why it's has to teach me that it does. Because of Rahman Balmum, if it only said Balmum, Mishum Damais. I would have thought that that's disqualified because that's disgusting. It's a mum. It's offensive. It's something that is not proper to be used for any part of an avodah. Aval Mechusar Zman Deloy Moyes, but Mechusar Zman, it's just premature, but it's not Moyes. I would have thought for the Sor Lazazel that's not going on the Mizbeach, I might have thought that it's kosher, tzricha. Therefore, it has to teach me this as well, that it is not royal Mizbeach. It has to teach me in this case as well. Rava says we have another case. We have a third scenario where we have to have this limud to teach us that the Sor Lazazel cannot be premature, cannot be Mechusar Zman. He says as follows: a person who had in his house somebody who was seriously ill, and therefore it's a question of Pikuch Nefashos, and they had to feed the person, they had to feed him on Yom Kippur. So V'shachat Imay b'Yom Kippur, and he shechted the mother Yom Kippur. He shechted the mother Yom Kippur in order to feed the seriously ill person. It was Bikuch Nefashos. Now, the Ritva points out, really, you don't have to talk about a scenario where there was Bikuch Nefashos and he did it beheter. It could have been that he did a biser. But the same result would apply. But we don't want to talk about a case where he did a biser, so we find a scenario where he did it beheter. I'll go upon it. The seller, the person who sold the soyer, for the soyer to be used for the Sor Lazazel, that person on Yom Kippur shechted the mother. Now, once he shechted the mother, there is an isser of shechting the child. You can't shecht the mother and the child. The shoyer saw oisaves benoy loisishchatu b'yaymecha. You can't shecht the mother and the child on the same day. So now, when you made the geiral, so the animal was the soyer was more than 8. It was 8 days over. It was more than 7 days, and it was not mechusar zman. So the geiral was a valid geiral. The soyer could have been used l'Hashem because it was a valid geiral, because it was not less than 8 days old. However, after the geiral, now the soyer becomes mechusar zman. It becomes mechusar zman because the mother was shechted. The mother was shechted on that day. Now it's this soyer cannot be shechted. Now, even though you're not shechting it, but it cannot be shechted, then it's still considered to be mechusar zman, and it's not valid. Is this also in such a case? It says you can't shech the mother and the child on one day. Shchita. And this is not shchita. They're pushing it off the cliff. But that's not shchita. So what's the issur over here of the child, the fact that the mother was shechted today? You're not shechting the Sor Lazazel, you're pushing it off a cliff. The more answer is, they said in Eretz Yisrael, pushing it off the cliff, that has halacha, it has halacha of shchita. So therefore, just like you can't shecht it today because the mother was shechted, you can't push it off the cliff either. It's considered, therefore, it's mechusar zman. And therefore, we say that it is not valid. The Achronim, Achiezer and other Achronim have a shaila, to what extent do we say that the chiyasa latzuk zui shchitasa? Does that mean also that it's not metama with mas, it's not metama like in the vela because it's considered to be shechted, or we don't take it to that extent? That's a discussion in the Achronim.